Hello, everybody. It's Mike Milligan. I'm going to go ahead and share my video. I don't want to scare you, so give you a chance to brace yourself for that image. So I appreciate everybody's time today. We've got 49 people signed up, and with that number of people, we can't keep keep it interactive. There would just be, somebody's phone would be on hold, or music on hold, or talking and not knowing that they're live on the World Wide Web. So let's kick things off here. Even though we still got people joining, I really like to start on time. So my name is Michael Milligan. I'm the founder of Accunet and the longtime cheerleader, yeehaw, for Dynamics SL and for the businesses that are our customers that use this tool to succeed. My goal is continual improvement in your financial systems. I often hear from customers, Mike, we only use a portion of Dynamics SL, but the reality is that that's true for any financial system that you might use. So my goal is to meet you where you are today and put together a plan to meet your business goals and improves the efficiency of your business system. If you're using 10% or 70% of the system, how can we make it 10% better this year? We look at the whole business. What do you do outside the system? What do you do in spreadsheets? What do you do in other systems that may not be integrated? What's your business workflow? What are the key business processes that we can streamline and automate? What takes a lot of manual time? Where are the mistakes? Where's the double and triple redundant data entry? So we attack the negatives and we turn those into positives. I encourage you all to reach out to me to set up a time if I'm not already hounding you, to talk about how we can improve your systems and make your accounting department a strategic asset for your company's success. Doing the bulk of the presentation today will be Jeff Suen. Jeff Suen's with Microsoft. He's worked with Microsoft Dynamics for well over 20 years. And he's my go-to resource for all things SL. I mean, if I need to know, hey, is there a company that's solved this problem with this module? Is there a third party that might be successful? What new things are coming out with SL? Jeff can help me answer those questions. And he's a great resource for me. So I really appreciate his time today. We're lucky to have him present, a summary of the features added in 2018 CU1 and CU2, plus what has been added in CU3, which was just released in November. So for those of you who have been holding off on an upgrade, I think this is a very stable product. It's very likely that this will be, what will be the core product for many years ahead. So I think now's the time. If you've been holding off, you're on version 7, especially 2011 or even 2015. Now's the time to start planning an upgrade. Jeff will be covering a huge amount of information, but we plan to have a few minutes at the end. And as Seth said, if you can send me those questions, we'll try and work them in during the presentation if the material is not already planned to be covered. We'll try to answer any questions, and we'll make questions a priority at the end. So anything we can't get to during the presentation, if you put those questions in the chat, we'll follow up on those later if we don't knock them out in the presentation. Jeff and I appreciate your business and appreciate you using Dynamics SL. And we realize that you're getting calls from other software vendors all the time. They're always promising new features, new efficiencies, saying bad things about Microsoft and Dynamics SL. But guess what? We're still here. We're still doing well. We've got a new product, our new release. We encourage that discussion. If your business plans, if the technology, if you're looking at going to the cloud, you need to make some process improvements. You're merging, adding companies. You need to bring more of the system into the whole enterprise. That's what Accunet's all about. So we encourage that discussion. And even if you're talking with another software provider and it sounds good, I encourage you to bring me in and just let me, I guess for lack of a better word, play the devil's advocate, and say, hey, this is what I have heard. This is what I've seen with other customers. and help you make a better, fully informed decision. So, in that case, if we are having a discussion about system change, who's the best person to talk to about that is someone who's been involved in your system for years, who's been integral in the design, the maintenance, and the customizations of your financial system. Some of the competitors promise, move to the cloud. It's so easy you can self-implement. Frankly, I think that's bull. It's still a major process change. You folks have been using SL for 10, 20, 30 years in some cases, and you've tweaked that system and refined it and worked it into your business processes, just like a hand to a glove. So to think that you could self-implement on another solution, I think is crazy. But we can move to the cloud. We can help you with other options, some that are Microsoft published and some that are not. But we still use the Microsoft stack. I think it's definitely the best business solution for mid-market. Tight Office integration, Microsoft SQL is the back end, Microsoft servers, Office 365, Excel, Word, Outlook, all those things tightly integrated. So changing a business system is risky. IDC reports that 70% of new financial systems implementations fail. In short, the budget is blown or the timeline was grossly exceeded. Features and improvements are not accomplished. As a company struggles to get back to just getting financials out at the end of the month and getting bills paid. So talk to us about your plans, what other publishers are promising, and we can help you make a better decision, even if you decide to move to a competitor. So we want to be your trusted partner. Let's move to the agenda here. So, here is our agenda for today. The release of SL 2018 CU3 extends the life of SL and demonstrates Microsoft's commitment to this product. Along with new features, Microsoft is keeping SL current with rapidly changing improvements in Office, SQL, Windows, Microsoft servers, and a myriad of other technologies that modern businesses are using. So besides adding a lot of new features. So Jeff will be providing valuable information that will help you decide, when to upgrade, what can be improved with a rich library of add-ons that are available to us with SL. And even if now is the right time to consider a new system. So, okay, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jeff.
Well, thank you everybody for taking time to attend today. I 100% behind everything that Michael said, so there's nothing for me to do there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started right into the presentation. As he said, we'll have time for questions at the end, but I'll go ahead and get started. As far as we go with Microsoft Dynamics SL and our life cycle, we'll jump into it. There was a key date that just happened, and I almost forgot to update my presentation. That just happened just a couple days ago with Dynamics SL, but let's talk about what this means. So the life cycle for Dynamics SL, the Dynamics products, is a 10-year life cycle. So 5 years on mainstream support and 5 years on extended support. So where we are with that, so if you're on SL7, you've been outside of support for a long time. So SL7 no longer gets support. That means no hot fixes, no year-end updates, no support if you need it for that product. For my people that are still on 2011, you do get extended support. That means no hot fixes and no year-end updates, but if you call an email, a request, or an issue, you can get support for it that way. 2015, a big change happened here. We went from mainstream support to extended support just a few days ago. So we are now in the extended support timeframe. So no new hot fixes, no year-end updates happening for SL 2015 going through. So this is definitely the right time to start making sure that you are setting things up and getting ready to upgrade here in the coming year. The next thing that we have up here is our mainstream support for SL 2018. You can see 2018 CU3 has just come out, and this is the time that we want you to start upgrading this year. This is a perfect time to do it. You'll be on mainstream support for Dynamics SL, and everything will continue to move forward smoothly. So let's go into the features. So I kind of broke them out by 2018 CU1, we'll do some CU2, and then we'll talk about the CU3 releases. So as far as the look and feel, sometimes the more things change, the more they go back to the way they were. So we are now back to single color icons. I can't tell you why, but Microsoft decided that we have our nice little Dynamics logo, and we've decided to go with the single color icon. So that's what we have here. So this will let you know when you install 2018 that you are in 2018 right now. As far as features, the first one is a big, long time request that I've had, and that's the ability to set up approvals in some key data entry screens. What do I mean? Well, if Jeff is my data entry person and he is the person putting in entries into the voucher and adjustment entry, Mike would really like it if that every time he was done doing data entry, that it had to go through some type of approval process. So what will happen in this screen if you turn on the approval process and come in here and try to release or release now, whatever you happen to choose, it's going to tell you, I'm sorry, someone has turned on the approval process. You need to get it approved before you can actually move forward with that. So we go ahead, I go in here, I do my data entry as Jeff, I submit it for approval. I click on the finish button and it goes into a new status that we haven't had before called W, meaning it is waiting. It's waiting to be approved, it's waiting to possibly be rejected, but it is in the waiting stage right now. Now, once it goes into the status, then we look to the approvers to go ahead and start approving it. And there are 3 different ways that you can approve these items. One is kind of the old-fashioned way that I would say, or the standard way, is actually logging in to Dynamics SL and opening up the voucher adjustment entry screen. As you come into the screen, there's a couple different ways you can improve. You could choose to open up every single voucher one at a time and approve or reject them. That is definitely there. The one I prefer is usually more at a header level where we can choose to approve or reject the entire batch at one time. Now, one thing that's nice too that's built into the screen for the approvers is you have an option. So for example, if Mike logs into the screen and he sees that Jeff put it against the wrong project, he has an option. He has full editing capabilities as an approver, so he could quickly change that to the project and move forward, or he could choose to reject it and say, Jeff, this is a learning experience for you. You need to understand that you've got the wrong project that you selected here. So it can go either way, but assuming that everything is good and Mike is happy with it, he can choose to approve it, put in an entry of why he approved it if he wants to, and then once it goes into that approved status, then everything to the end user who's doing the data entry looks the same. Now release now is available, now release later is available, and so forth. So it allows us to move forward with that process. Now I said that you could actually approve it 2 different ways. Here's another way. One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later was the ability in SL to start getting email notifications. We'll talk about these more in a little while, but the idea here is you can actually set up approvals inside of Dynamics SL using something, it used to be called Flow when I took these screenshots, but it's changed its name. It's Microsoft Automate, same feature. But the idea here is that we can automatically email the approver when something needs to be approved. So this is completely customizable to what displays. I put in high-level information. Here's the batch, here's the module, the total, here's the vendor, the total amounts for each vendor, and so forth. So we're giving you that high-level information. Now, if you were on a machine that was logged into Dynamics SL or could log into SL, you could click right here on that link and open it up and start going ahead and viewing the actual document. Or if this is enough for you to say, yep, I'm okay with it moving forward, you can actually choose to approve or reject the item right inside the email. I don't need to get into SL, I don't need to do any of these things. So this means that if you're not in the office or you're at home or you're out on the road, you can choose to approve these items without having to log into Dynamics SL. The thing that I like about it as well, as soon as you do take an action, that email changes. I don't have to open up this email at another time and guess, hey, did I approve or reject that item? I can easily open up and see, oh, I definitely approved it, and here's when I did it. So you can go onto the screen, you can do it via email, and the last way you can do it, you also, with that flow, there's also an app for that. There has to be an app for it, right? That's the way we live. But you can also do that approvals in this online app for the emails. We've also created an application using another feature in Microsoft called Power Apps, which we'll talk again about later. And what Power Apps allowed us to do is we created an interface that looks at all your batches that are out there, and it looks at who you are. So if Mike were to log into this app and he was seen as an approver, it would show there are batches out here. Here are the ones that you can actually take action on. So he can look at the information, he can drill down in to see the history. And so the original idea was I want to see who submitted it, who approved it, how did it go through. So it provides that type of information as well. How many people are supposed to be approving it? Looks like we need 2 people to approve it. We can then go ahead and look at other batches that are in the system as well to see exactly that, yep, this one actually did get approved by the first person, but now it's waiting for the second. So it gives us a way to look at that information, but at the end of the day, it also gives me the ability to go ahead and approve the batch right inside of this application. This application is built to run on your desktop, on a phone, on a tablet, so it can run on any of those platforms. So that's why we say this is newer technology that Microsoft has come out, things like Power Apps, Power BI, and Flow that allow us to extend the Microsoft SL solution out to where you want it and to where you want to be able to do things. How do we do approvals? Well, we can do either 1 or 2 levels of approvals, and our approvals can be based on user groups. So maybe we just say, this group called Approver Ones. The idea behind it is that it could be multiple people, and the idea behind that is that whoever gets to it first approves it. So it's whoever gets those when you're using a group, or we can actually use a specific user that we want to approve it as well. In this case, web user 10 is the person. And we can do it differently have it the same thing for all companies or different for each company. So if you're using Microsoft Dynamics L's multi-company feature, you could have different approvers based on the company as well. So a lot of nice flexibility there. Now, jumping from that enhancement to the next one is a way to search for things. So if you've seen SL 2015, you're probably familiar with the new interface for doing a PV list. What we've added here is that when we came out with 2015, we added the ability to type in a value here. So if I typed in the value ON in the field name, it would show me anywhere, any value inside of name that contains the value ON, which we thought was wonderful. But our SL7 people said, you know what, I'm used to it being with begins with. So we've added the ability to on the fly choose between contains or begins with as to how you want to search the data in your table. Over here, I've turned it on to begins with, so I type in the letter T, and it's showing me any name that starts with the value T. Again, you can change it on the fly, just to show you, again, we're listening to the things you're asking for and making those adjustments. You can even set up what your default behavior is. So if I always want it to be contains or always want it to begins with, you can set that up as well. Now, some things in the project area. One of the big items in project is printing out invoices. And a common practice is that I want to print out my invoices and put them into a PDF because it's usually quicker to print than to wait for the printer to catch up and do all those things. So we added 3 options. So you can actually print to a local drive on your machine. You can print it out to a DocShare site that's been created for this manager. So it'll look at the invoices, look at the manager for them and put them into a DocShare or SharePoint site for that manager, or it'll put it out into a different site for that project. The big benefit there is if you are doing, in this case, a preliminary invoice, you can print them all out to one location, have that project manager or person in that project look at them and not have to ask you where they're at, or you don't have to print them out and put them somewhere. And the same thing with the final printing process, being able to put them out into those areas. Now, a big ask has always been, the question I've always gotten, customers, they can be inactive, but why not vendors? Well, now you can include vendors as being able to be inactive. But what does inactive mean, Jeff? That means that there are no new purchase orders, there are no new voucher and adjustment entries, and there are no new checks if a vendor is inactive. So none of those things can happen. Now, how do I make a person inactive? All you need to do is go into the screen and change them to inactive. So let's say Mike is working with me, I'm his vendor, and something has happened between us, and Mike wants to stop all work with Jeff. Literally all he has to do is change it to inactive. It's not deleting Jeff, it's not getting rid of Jeff, it's just making him unavailable in these areas, which is important. Now, if you go ahead and try to change Jeff to be inactive, we will give you a couple warnings. The warning that we'll give you is, for example, if you happen to have 5 purchase orders open with Jeff, we're going to let you make him inactive, but we're going to warn you because that might change those things that you're expecting to create POs for. And there are some cases we're not going to allow you to make them inactive. For example, if Jeff is set up as a primary vendor for an inventory item, we're not going to allow you to make him inactive unless you go into that inventory item and turn off the fact that he is your default vendor for that. So there's some places we won't, but the most part, that gives you that flexibility. Where does this impact? Those were the key areas of things that you couldn't do, but this vendor inactive impacts all of these screens. That means that that vendor will stop showing up in all of these screens. So just a couple. Now, the nice thing about it is that even as quickly as Michael made me inactive, he's quick to be able to turn me back onto active so we can start working with Jeff again as soon as we clear things up. The next one was around a long-time feature that we've had in SL around doing reversals. So in the journal transaction screen, we've always had the ability to do reversals with corrections and copies of existing journals in the general journal transaction screen. But one of the things that was found is that when projects were involved with your entries inside of SL in the journal transaction screen, the updates to the projects were being reversed, meaning a credit would come over as a negative, a debit would come over as a positive. And so this is just for our people that might have shied away from this in the past. This has been corrected, so now all credits for projects will hit positively to the project, and all debits will hit negatively to the project. So again, in case you haven't looked at feature or walked away from it because it wasn't working well for you, we're letting you know that works now perfectly with our projects as well. A couple other project enhancements is around travel and expense. Now, generally what's supposed to happen is if you're using the interface to do your expense reports, you're supposed to be, in a lot of cases, we'll have internal setup that, hey, Jeff, you need to actually attach a receipt to your expense report. So if you're using web apps or something to do your items in there, what would generally happen is you would go into your web app, you would go ahead, take a picture or attach a picture of your receipt and attach it. And then someone would look at your things and approve them, assuming that you have put your expenses in, your expense receipts in. But you and I all know that just because we put it in the system doesn't mean that everyone's going to remember to do it all the time. The big change here has been is that in this travel and expense report screen, the icon right here that's been highlighted in red has been enabled no matter what the status of this travel expense report means. So for example, it might be completed, but you might realize after the fact that you never put receipts in here. We've enabled it so someone can come in at a later time and add that receipt no matter the status of the travel expense report. Another enhancement that was made is you may, or hopefully you're familiar with this feature, is the fact that you can view an actual web page inside of Dynamics SL. So the one I'm showing you here is we're connected to Customer Source. We're able to view Customer Source, could be used for internal sites as well. This is a little more of an IT thing, but what we've done is we've updated this page so it will support newer web pages and not have errors trying to display them inside there. And what we've done for the admins on the call is we've made it so if you want to start setting up home pages for your users, we wanted to make it easier for you to do that. So let's say you decided that you want to use the customer source site or the to be able to set up and go ahead, and everyone should be able to view that page inside of SL. For the admins, you can come in here, type in that information once, hit this button and copy it off to all the users or the groups in your company, and it will automatically send that up. So it's just a way to kind of reinforce that feature and that we've updated it, and a nice way to make it more functional for people setting it up. All right, we're jumping on to CU2. What did we do there? One of the big requests was, sounds kind of simple, but when you're in the release GL batches screen, we wanted to be able to see what the period to post is. Why is that important? Well, if Jeff went ahead and put in the wrong period to post, which you see I have, I want to be able to quickly see it in the release GL batch screen, see that it's wrong, and what we can actually do is if I have the proper access rights, I can go into something called initialize mode, and it will allow me to edit the period to post right on the screen. So I see he put 2025 in incorrectly. I corrected to 2004, which happens to be the right one for this database. Put it into the right one, go ahead and move forward, release that batch. And if I were to open the batch, I would see it posted to the right period. So allowing you to be able to do that and not have to open each journal transaction and review them one at a time to see which period you posted to, I can view it all in one screen and make edits as I need to. Another big one for a project. So we've got some project ones here. The big thing with the project area is with the week maintenance screen, a screen that I use all the time in doing demonstrations, because as we all know, the week maintenance screen needs to be set up if you're going to do a demonstration of how time works inside of Dynamics SL. So what did we do? Well, we added this entire upper section to it. And what's the thing that we did here? Is we said, okay, instead of you having to manually type into the screen, we're going to make it so you don't have to. So you tell me the starting date, you tell me the ending date, you tell me what your time card period is it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? You put all that information in the header, you hit the begin processing button, and it goes ahead and pops up a screen. And what that screen says is, okay, based on what you just told me, Jeff, this is my preview to show you if you're okay with this, and you click OK, this is automatically going to get added to the existing values in the week maintenance screen. And the reason why we do it this way is that you have more time to edit it here. So if you went in here and you decide you wanted to change you put the wrong fiscal periods would be fine, but let's say you wanted to change the time period numbers or you wanted to change the salary factor, we allow you to do this in here first, make your adjustments, and as soon as you click OK, it goes ahead and adds them on to the end of your week maintenance. This is something that I use all the time and very, very glad to have in the system as well. The next thing is another feature around time entry, and this has to do with something called our end date. So inside of Dynamics SL, we've had a start and end date field inside of Dynamics SL, and it really has only been there as an end date is just for informational purposes. You know, this project happens to end in February, March, April, whatever it happens to be. But it really didn't do anything. So there was the big request is, hey, let's give me the option to make it actually do something for each project. So we have the ability to turn it off, set it at project level or task level. So let's see, what does that mean? Well, if I set it at project level, what it will do is that it will, as soon as we get past that end date, that project, if I had it set at project level, will stop showing up in my time and expense entry. So no longer will I see that project because we've gone past that end date. Oh, wow, what a great thing. I don't need to remember to run back and turn it on or off at a later time. It's automatically being turned off. Now at the task level, it's really, really nice as well. It's because one of the features is that you can set end dates by task. So maybe one task ends at the beginning of January, but one doesn't end to the end of January. You can actually set that in the system and the project will show up, but the task will start disappearing based on whether they've been set up to be the way that we do this as well. So great new feature, building on some functionality that we've had, but just listening to, hey, we've had this forever, what can we do to start using this inside the products? And again, this works with the rich client as well as with our web apps as well. So here's where it works with the CU2 version. Again, time entry, time card, time detail, project timesheet, and so forth. You see them all listed there. That whole end date validation works there as well as with our web apps, as I said. The next area was some enhancements that we did around the invoice and adjustment posting process. So if you look above the red line, you can see that what we've always had is the ability to choose the invoice and adjustment posting, what you want to post by sub-account, biller, and so forth. You see the values across the top. Now, what people wanted to do is, well, sometimes we want to do a little bit more, Jeff. Yes, sometimes we want to select just specific projects. So if I hit select projects, I can go ahead and do a PV and list the projects that I want to post. Or if I wanted to select invoice and adjustments that are out there, I could click on that button and be able to choose which ones I want to post. But you have, again, taking functionality that's already been out there, listening to the enhancement requests and making it work the way that people are looking for. The next thing, switching gears over here to our service area, one of the features that was requested is that service call entry be enhanced. Now, the idea behind a service call, whether you were doing an actual call or a quote, as soon as you chose a site, it would lock it down, saying that you've chosen that we're using the default site. But when you're doing a quote, you might not know exactly where this is happening because a customer will have multiple sites. What we've done is we've listened to customers and made this field enabled. So if you wanted to choose another site, you could choose another site at any time while it is in the quote mode. So it gives you the flexibility that you need when you're doing your quotes. All right. So that's CU, CU1, CU2, and now we come to CU3. And as Mike alluded to, we just released CU3 back at the end of 2019, so it is out there and available as today. So let's go through what have we done in this latest release. Well, these presentations that I'm giving you today, I give a lot to all my Dynamics SL family and customers, and we get great feedback when we give these presentations. And here's just one example. The way it was set up, and I showed you earlier that you could change the default for your PV behavior. People said, that's really great, Jeff, and that's nice, but I want, as an end user, I want to be able to set that field. And obviously we don't want to give people access to the user maintenance screen. So we've added it to the options area so you can choose what your default behavior is inside of the standard options area. So that's an example of an enhancement that came out. We got great feedback on what we could change about it. And we've been able to quickly make an adjustment to the screen to work the way that people want. Same, the other request said, hey, thanks for doing that for payables. How about the journal transaction screen? That's exactly what we did. We've added the ability to turn on the approval process and the journal transaction screen. So what does that mean? We don't need to do it again, but basically you can do the approvals and journal transaction screen. You can do it through an email. You can do it through an application. Again, Jeff can do the general journal transaction entries. He can submit them from approval. Mike can view them in one of those 3 different areas. Choose to approve it and move forward with doing your journal transactions. So Mike talked about workflow, that we've totally heard that request, that we need to be able to have some abilities to do that, and that's exactly where those came from. Just like we had before, again, you'll show that, just to show you that it is real, there is a new screen available to do it. Set this up, and it is the new journal transaction screen. Just like we showed you the journal transaction, the GL batch release screen, they said, that's wonderful. Why don't you do it for AR and AP? And we exactly did that. So they came back to us and said, yep, AR and AP, we like the idea that you can change it. Can you add it to both of these screens as well? So again, the ability to view the period to post and the ability to edit it in initialize mode makes it easier to view those items that are out there. Then the next thing, again, building off what we had before, is we came up with the end date validation process. Some people said, I love the fact that you can now turn off projects inside of the time and expense entry area. Perfect, exactly what I need. I'd like to also be able to do that inside of the modules as well. Now, we've always had the ability to turn them off by coming in here and turning off the different modules. But when people said, again, I like the idea that I can set my end date once and then know that we're going to stop billing against these things, and I can choose exactly which modules, the AP, AR, or GL screen, which ones I want to start turning it off. Again, same exact idea as we had before. And then the screens that we actually do in GL, AP, AR would be those main screens: journal transactions, voucher adjustment entries, and invoice and memo. Those were the areas where we're getting asked for these things the most once they saw the ability for us to turn it off in other areas. So again, hopefully you're seeing the progression here. Great ideas, great feedback from our customers, and be able to enhance it to make it work even better. Now, one thing we'll talk about here in just a second, but it is included here in CU3, is our continued investment in Power BI. We'll talk about that here in just a second, but basically what Power BI allows you to do is a way to get a kind of a holistic view of your data inside of Dynamics SL. So we created a series of dashboards. You'll see here in a second, we've done one around project that we've talked about for a long time, but in CU3, we've actually added one here for customer information. Information to give you high-level views of the data in SL. For example, the total number of receivable documents is 42. The number that are actually past due is 39. Ooh, okay, I need to go ahead and take a look at those. Looking at the top 10 customers by balance, here they are, here's their balance. Being able to see the top 10 documents by balance, which you would see pretty much mimics in this particular case. We have other ones that are looking at information, the number of documents for sales, the amount in sales, and then who are those people that we're getting those sales through. So we can get to see exactly what's making up our sales by top 10 sales documents and top 10 customers by sales. Being able to break things down by customer classes. So we're able to see the different customer classes by year and the items that are in there. Being able to see accounts receivable aging, aged account receivable by customer, aged account receivable by document. And the nice thing about this, the way that we've developed these are all available to you. So if you get the latest and greatest Dynamics SL and install it, this dashboard will be available to connect. And the nice thing about it with Power BI is we deliver these dashboards with the idea that this is your starting point, because you'll see, for example, it's got built-in filters, so you can choose what companies and which classes and which statements, and you can choose which customers or projects you want to see. But the idea is this is a great starting point for you to kind of dip your toe into this idea of Power BI and what it could provide to you. And then you can take that and build it out into the areas that work best for you. Year-end updates, what did we do? 2019, they're out there if you haven't seen them. The big changes, to be honest with you, was around, there is some very minor W2 form layout changes that are in there, but the big one was around W4s. Definitely, if the big thing is obviously we don't do anything with W4s out of the box, but there need to be some changes to the ability to set up employees for this new head of household hire, and you see it listed here. You don't need me to read that off to you. But we now support that inside of the core product, because if you do need this for being able to do W4s, you will have that information recorded properly inside of Dynamics SL. So if you need the 2019 year-end updates, they are available for your 2015 and 2018 people. All right, and hopefully you heard in my presentation that these features are based on great feedback that we get. Obviously, we've got a lot of features that have been sitting out there that we address, but my favorite features are the ones of the people that I talk to on presentations like this, where they come up with that idea that is going to impact them, that's going to help them. This is my email address, as Mike had shared with you earlier in the presentation. If you have an idea, contact Mike and team, or if Mike's okay with that, feel free to contact me. Say, hey, Jeff, this is where we're really having an issue. I want to have Mike involved, but we want to know what those things are so we can start addressing them. All right, so you've seen there's a lot of things that we've added here in 2018, and it's a very different kind of idea. Usually in the past, I do a 2018 presentation, and then I would disappear for a couple years, and you probably wouldn't hear from me. The idea is we want to be more connected with you as a community, and that's why we're doing more frequent updates. So we're generally doing a new cumulative update roughly about every 6 months or so. And the idea there is that we can address any issues, but more that I'm excited about is we can address new feature requests that we're getting, put them into the product sooner rather than later. And the way that we're actually deploying these cumulative updates is they are overlays. So for example, when CU4 comes out later, you might look at the features and go, yeah, nothing in CU4 that I want, and you could stay on CU3. But then when CU5 comes out, you might go, ooh, I like that one. And the way we're building is that they can be easily installed on top of it. It's not a full uninstall, reinstall, rip everything out. It's just something we can put over top. So I digress, but let me come back to where we're here with the areas that we're really, really excited. And you've seen me give some examples around Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Apps. To me, these are technologies that Mike and his team can really help you get behind and understand the power that you can when you're starting to work with tools that are in the cloud. So these are true cloud tools, but they can work with your Dynamics SL today. You don't need to host your SL. It can still work the way that you have it today. So Power BI, you kind of saw an example with my customer dashboards that we created, but it is a way to start looking at your data inside of SL, being able to take information that's used in different areas and being able to kind of cut across it. So in the past, we're not looking at transactional type of data. We're looking at the ability to look at overviews of customers and sales and vendors and where we're purchasing things from and so forth to really get a better look. And what we've been showing over the past several years here is the Project BI dashboard that we created around projects, which allows us to look at things like labor and expense, taking a look at gross margin as the current year versus previous year. Things you generally wouldn't think about, but they give you a good insight into what's going on, in this case, in your project. The nice thing about these dashboards, I just showed you on the other one, you can filter them out by periods, by years, by rankings, by different, in this case, in the project world, by different statuses. You're able to then look at other information, whether it's looking at inception to date data or month to date data, or even looking at high-level view of information. So, for example, your top projects and your bottom projects, your top project managers and your bottom project managers. Why do I want to know who they are? Well, for my top projects and project managers, I want to make sure they're still getting what they need. For my bottom project managers, I'm assuming there's something going on that's not making them successful, so I want to know who they are, so I can speak to them and start talking to them about what we need to do to help them out. And can you slice this thing up? Oh, yeah, you can. These are all the different ways you can slice it, and you can actually choose multiple slicers at a time, which is what I did on this screenshot, just to show you can do a bunch of them at a time. But you can go ahead and slice it in multiple different ways, see how they all kind of relate to each other. So it's, again, this is just a touch point, a starting point for you, but really see Power BI being a great way to start looking at your data. Now, the next one to talk about is Power Apps. And Power Apps, it used to be if you came to Michael or I and said, hey, I love this, love SL, but I'd love to have a little application that did, that allowed someone to look up a customer and their address, or a vendor and their address, or a customer and their sales, or a vendor and their sales, or just little bits of information. And you said, well, okay, we could set them up in SL and we'd have to give them access rights and we'd have to worry about that, do that kind of stuff. But the thing that's really exciting about this Power App solution is that you can actually build a screen on the fly that presents the information that you want people to be able to see. So think of this Power Apps as kind of like task rated. What is a task that people are constantly asking you as in accounting or in a different area of the product that you're constantly being asked? Would it be great if you could create a screen that provides that information to those people and give them access to that app, and then they can look it up whenever they want? And it's a tool that doesn't need you to be a developer to actually go out and develop the code. And it's something that is simple as if I write it, I can post it up online to my company and give people access rights to it in my company. So it's a really, really great tool. Again, it can be as simple as a list. It can be as complex as a full budgetary view of information, or you can add graphics and make it look really, really cool. Again, it's very, very diverse into what it can do, and I'll show you in a second exactly what it can do. The last one is Power Automate, or as it was previously known as its Flow. And the idea behind this was a very, very powerful tool that allowed you to do a bunch of different things. The one that I'm going to focus on here first is around getting notifications. Wouldn't you love it to know when a vendor or customer goes over a certain balance or a project, or when someone adds a new customer or vendor to your database? Wouldn't you like to know that sooner rather than later? So that's the area that I'm going to focus on. It's also a tool that can be used to synchronize files, collect data, and even as we showed earlier, it can actually do approvals. And that's the one I was showing you earlier with the whole AP and GL approval process. So it really provides you. Now, Power Automate, Power BI, Power Apps all come with pre-built templates. These are not tools that are just SL specific. I think these are tools that can be used across your entire organization to do many, many different things. So I definitely would tell you these are things to definitely look into. Now, what we've done in SL around these Power Automate flows is we've created a bunch of kind of generic ones that let you know when a new account, customer, inventory, or project has been created. Pretty cool. Let you know when things are over balance. So when is a customer going over a balance, a project, a vendor going over a specific balance? You can set up what that dollar amount is. You can tell it who you want it to email when that happens. And then, as I showed you, that AP and GL batch approval. And you can even set something that we don't have in SL, the ability to automatically notify customers when they are past due. So you could have it set up, you can format it, the look and the feel that you want. And the emails actually look pretty darn nice. You can have tables in them, it gives you a lot of flexibility. Now, we deliver these to you out of the box, but they are 100% customizable. So if you don't like the data that we're giving, or you want to add more data, it's up to you. You can work with Mike and his team to add more data on top of it to make it look and feel the way that you want it to work. And so just for a couple quick here, before we kind of end the hour here, a couple examples of what we have is I wanted to come up with a solution that you as a customer could kind of get an idea of the power of Power Apps and Flow. And so what we did is we created an app. Someone came to me and said, we'd like to be able to view our receivables due out in the field. We want to be able to get contacting to those customers if they find they are well over balance. We want to be able to, if I know that there's payment has been received and I'm not in the office, I want to be able to run an aging remotely and get the results of that. And that's exactly what we did. And we created 2 different apps. This is the first screenshot is of the phone version, and you can tell just by the size and the narrowness. But what I'm going to show you in the actual app that's for a desktop or tablet, it works exactly the same way. So what it allows me to do, this just gives me a little bit more real estate, so I can search for customers. I can see the values. It's now currently sorted based on current balance. If I wanted to find out a little bit more about Baldwin, I could click on Baldwin and open them up. And so this drills to another page where it's showing me the details of Baldwin. It's showing me the balances by each of the different companies that I happen to have set up. I can click on the email icon and it will automatically take this email address and copy it into an email and let me call them or email them or let me call them. So I've got that capabilities. And in this case, this scenario, I see that there's $408,000 as a balance. I know that they paid us recently. So if I wanted to, I could click here and run the aging remotely. Again, you're giving people access who you want to be able to do this, and they can run the aging process remotely. We'll just make sure that you are sure you want to execute it. And what I've set it up is as soon as the process is run and it does the aging, I have it automatically emailing me the results. So I can have it just like you saw me do those automated emails. It's going to go ahead and attach all the aging schedule, and I purposely put every single field in here in case there's one that you're asking me. But this is customizable to your needs. Hey, Jeff, all I want to see is the customer name and the best. That's all I want to see. So you have complete customizable control over what gets sent to you. So hopefully that kind of gives you some excitement around that. That's where we really see we are continuing obviously to build out new features and functionality, but to me, those are things that are going to change the way you do business. If I can get notified when X happens, if I can automatically notify someone when something happens, if I can get a new view on that data, if I can create an app so Jeff stops bothering me about this type of information and he can quickly get access remotely and securely, and he only sees what I want him to see, I'm all for it. So that's the kind of idea we have there. Now, still being developed are our web apps, which is prior to the old day idea of Power Apps being out there, was our way to remotely access Dynamics SL, built to run on a Microsoft, Apple, Android type device because it doesn't matter on the number of items that are the different types of operating systems. They're all there. It doesn't matter what you're running on. You can access Dynamics SL on them. We are constantly, basically once a month, we're coming out with new hot fixes and any new features that we add to the product. So you can kind of see where we got our idea for the other area, but we're constantly getting great requests, enhancements and things and adding them to the product. Where do we constantly work? This is the areas just as an FYI. We're not going to go deep into this, but if you need to speak to Michael or team about this, these are the areas. So the darker blue items, obviously on the left-hand side, are all very project related, from setting up a project, setting up a resource, setting up what their rate is, being able to then allow them to do time entry, expense entry, approve those items, check on the status of their time cards, all available to you there remotely, as well as the other items on the right-hand side. Some of them really quite neat, the ability to run a Dynamics SL report remotely on your phone or tablet. You don't need to have Crystal installed. You can actually run that report and view it remotely. And our quick query functionalities. All these items are available. Again, speak to Mike and team if you want to learn a little bit more. The next is our roadmap. Where are we going? Well, we continue to forge forward here. Again, the idea to take away from here is that basically twice a year we are currently coming up with what we call CUs, or cumulative updates. We're enhancing current features. We're getting on calls like this with customers, finding out their changes. We are now in the process of finalizing the CU4 items. I kind of purposely left it open because I knew I'd be on a call with you. So if you think of something that, hey, this might be a nice enhancement that would really help us out, as I said before, speak to Michael and team, they can contact me and we can talk about what those enhancements would be. Again, just reinforcing here that we have completely changed the way we do things. And then that fourth cumulative update is scheduled here in 2020, approximately 6 months or less from this time frame. We'll be coming up with the next release of Dynamics SL 2018. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Michael and team, and I know that he wanted to have some time set aside for any questions. So with that, Michael, I turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. That was great. Particularly excited about those CU updates being minor updates as opposed to upgrades. The upgrades from SL7 and 2011 and 2015 were bigger projects. And so what's nice about getting our customers on 2018 CU3 is that the next update will be a smaller project and it won't be as painful for the customer. So that's fantastic. One question, I don't know if it's fair to ask you, Jeff, but one of the questions we had from the customers was about the initialize mode and its impact on cache entries. Currently, if a cache entry is posted with a wrong date, you can't utilize initialization mode to correct because Cache Manager won't adjust. Is that something you know off your top of the head, or is that something you could investigate for a future improvement?
I apologize. I had myself muted. I was talking to myself. So you're saying outside of the screens that we've done, you're saying in other screens, in some of the other screens that we put initialize mode on, that sometimes that does work well with that. Now, that's a really great idea. Mike, if you could kind of facilitate the connection here with that information to me, I would love to get that, because that is a good point, because sometimes that does happen. So that's something that we can look into. Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right, Seth, do you have a couple questions for us that you gathered? Yeah, so Seth will be with us here in a second, but okay. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, there was actually a few. The first one that I was gathering while we were going through was, are you able to upload vouchers into SL to have a paperless system?
Sure. Michael, do you want me to take this, or do you want to, I don't know your solution of choice, so I'll let you take it.
Yeah, and first thing I want to trumpet is the standard features of SL. I think it was in release SL 2011, we got doc attach, and that allows you to add a PDF, Excel spreadsheet, Word document, notes, cut and paste notes to almost any transaction level. So it could be on the general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and you can attach those documents right with the corresponding accounting transaction. So that's a quick and easy document management system. If you want to do OCR, with an indexed database of documents and be able to search the whole document, then you need a full-blown doc management system. And we work with several. It really just depends on what you're doing, which one's best. So that's something I'd love to talk to you about. So and I've got your notes on that. I'll follow up with that customer on document management. But I would say in general, once customers get their accounting system fully utilized, probably one of the more popular next steps or business process improvements is adding document management, where they actually scan in the full text of the document. Using OCR, it can actually fill in the voucher, fill in the GL transaction. It can do some or most of the data entry for you, and also create workflows for those documents so approvals are done. And then afterwards, you have full text search on those documents. So, for an audit, if you wanted to say, I want to pull up all vouchers that reference, a certain address or location or a vendor stamp or something that wouldn't necessarily be accounting information, you can do a full text search on those documents with these document management systems. So always happy to talk about that. What's the next one, Seth?
Next one was, since FRX support is gone and MR support is frozen, what do you recommend for a financial report writer?
And there are several out there. I would say for most customers, what we're trying to do is get them into an Excel-based report writer. And, one option is Power BI that Microsoft would suggest, but it doesn't have some of the friendly formatting tools that FRX and MR had to do financial periods. So we like a package now called Excel Statements that is designed for SL. It connects right to the database. It'll also roll up project information, which lets you do project roll-ups of budgets and transactions into the general ledger and compare those, as well as budgeting. So that's a great tool. And then we also use for a more powerful, like I forget what they call it, but really a corporate reporting information system is a package called Columo, which sets up a data cube and can do some very advanced and sophisticated reporting. So those are worth a talk. I think for most customers, they need to get a replacement for FRX or MR. All right, what's the next one there, Seth?
What is the oldest version of SL I can have and still get support?
And you did cover that, Jeff, but I think that's worth repeating. Could you?
Sure, yep. So the to still get support, 2011 is the version that will still give you just phone support where you can write in and you get an answer to a question that you're having. You will get no hot fixes, you'll get no year-end updates, but 2011 is the one that you need to be on at a minimum. To be able to get hot fixes and year-end updates, you need to be up on 2018, literally as of 7 days ago. So
yeah,
definitely a good time. This is a great time that, Michael, that you had this. It pretty much is in line with exactly what's changing. So definitely a good time to start planning your update with Michael this year.
Yeah, we do still have a few customers on SL7, a handful on SL11, and then a good chunk on 2015. So it's I think moving to this 2018 is going to be a good strategy because those updates afterwards are so minor to keep it current. So I think once we get you on 2018, that'll solve a lot of problems and minimize the upgrade process going forward. All right, I don't see any other. Let me just page down here, see if any other questions have come in. Yeah, just a few friendly comments. We'll work on those.
Yes.
So I appreciate everybody's input, and Jeff, again, thanks for doing this presentation.
Always my pleasure.
So my email is mmilligan@accu.com. Always happy to talk business process improvement and what it'll take to get your system in a good solid state going forward. So encourage you to call and have that conversation. Thanks so much, everybody.